Drink it in, man.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions! Cornbread! Cornbread! Cornbread!
Drink it in, man.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions! Touchdown, Detroit Lions! Cornbread!
Detroit Koolaid. Detroit Koolaid drinkers. What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Derek Oakrey, right here on the Detroit Koolaid Cast. You guys know what it is. We're talking Lions football, and we are less than 10 days. You guys are hearing this. We'll probably be a week away. Next week, it's going to be the NFL draft, my favorite. I call it a sporting event, but my favorite event on the calendar. Lions are loaded up with picks. They got probably the hottest, hyped, swaggiest football team in the National Football League, and there's so much to talk about. So drink it in, everybody.
Drink it in, man.
And you got to drink it in. You might want to have an extra glass because I got two guests on the show. The one and only, you guys know who he is, Logan Lamorandier, Sports Illustrated, All Lions. He's coming on to talk draft and to get after it. Logan, how you doing?
Doing great. Happy to be here. Excited.
Appreciate you coming on. We always enjoy your takes, your info. We actually are going to center the show around you, my friend. But we also have another guy on this show. You guys know who he is. He's got sound bites. He comes on. He's ready to talk stats with Logan. They're going to talk about Logan's polls. We've got some draft players to talk about. I can't really call him the one and only because I already gave that to Logan. So it's just, at Chops in the D. Chops, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, Oakrey, I got to give the live version, man. Woo! That's an extra long woo because today we're on with Logan. Yes!
Woo! Hashtag choppy liking.
Exactly. So this should be a fun show. I'm going to try to be the host and navigate between these two awesome guys. I'm going to be talking Lions football. But I thought off the top of the show, the people know that we don't mess around. We get right into it. So, Logan, you did your annual Logan Lamorandier Twitter polls, which is where you put out these great questions that are on the minds of all the loyal, diehard Lions fans, or as I affectionately call them, Kool-Aid drinkers, to keep people accountable, to get the pulse of the folks out there, and to make people think and put their vote down on what the Lions are going to do. So I picked out a few of those, man. I thought we'd just rumble through them, get your guys' opinions, and then tell you what the people are saying. You think we can do that off the top here?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I got to get these polls in because I feel like perceptions and narratives always change after the draft of certain players and definitely years down the line. So I look back at these polls all the time when few years go by and you hear always these people saying, oh, we should have done this, we should have done that. You can just go right back to these polls and see exactly what everyone was thinking. So yeah, let's get into these, and there'll be more. These are like the first batch, but I will put up some more polls and go deeper into the rounds in a few here.
And that's why they're my favorite. They keep people accountable. I don't know. My buddies, this guy at Chops in the D, he'd always come back and say, I would have done this. I should have done that. Why the Lions do this? But it was always after the fact. So now we're going to talk about it in real time. Chops, you ready to do this?
Hashtag what Choppy said, Oakrey. Come on. I'm always right.
But now it's hashtag what Choppy said before rather than for years. It's always been after, and you were the smartest guy in the room. So we're going to see if you're the smartest guy in the room. So my first question to you, Chops, is would you approve of the Lions taking a quarterback? We may or may not have had a 30-minute shouting match before we hit record and before Logan got on about this topic. And Logan says, of course, presumably my boy Anthony Richardson. He threw in Will Levis. I don't know about that. And we're talking about at pick 6. Chops, what do you got?
Choppy, no likey. Absolutely not. I do not approve of taking a quarterback with the 6th pick. I want an impact player who's going to impact my team this year. No quarterback. I got my boy, #Goff train.
Logan, what do you think?
Riding the Goff train. So yeah, the poll's actually pretty close right now with not wanting to draft a quarterback at all at 6 is 42%. And then selecting just Richardson and not approving a Levis. So just Richardson is at 48%. So I would approve of drafting Richardson because I'm not going to get into my whole spiel about being in the third year of a rebuild and when's the best time to draft a quarterback. But I think the Lions have come down that path where they're at the point where they're probably not going to be picking this high again. And if they want to get a quarterback on a cheap deal for a long time, now's the time to do it if a quarterback is there. So I'm not saying that Richardson is my first choice if he's there. Jalen Carter's still probably my top guy, but Richardson, I think he has enough talent and his ceiling is so sky high that I would be more than happy drafting him, letting him sit, learn behind Goff, not be handcuffed with a big Goff contract that could potentially be in the future, and already have your replacement in place for someone who would be exciting and a lot of fun. So I would approve of the Lions drafting Richardson at 6 if they went that route.
Quick follow-up, Logan. Would you be okay with Levis at 6?
No,
say no.
I would. Again, it's like the same concept where having that quarterback would be nice, but I'm not as high on Levis as I am Richardson, and I don't necessarily think the value would be as good with Levis as Richardson.
Let me put this in sound bites that you can understand. I mean, your boy Jared Goff, the Goff train. I mean, I continue to say this.
I don't hate him. I don't.
I don't hate him, but you know what I think about Anthony Richardson? For all the reasons Logan said. So 48% or 40+% would approve of Richardson, 48, and 42 don't want either. They don't want a quarterback. So I think we're all kind of split on this. But hey, me and Logan on the same page. You out, where you've been for a long time with your boy JG16. Second question: would you approve of the Lions taking Hendon Hooker at 18? Logan, we go to you first for your thoughts.
I'm with the majority here. I would say no. I don't think I would approve. And it's mostly just because the ACL thing and the Lions can afford to have him sit on the bench for a year and recover. But I'm just not convinced in that offense that he's in that his skills are translatable, or you just see what the best of Hendon Hooker in that offense. And, maybe the Lions could try to do the same, but they're not going to be able to get away with the same offensive scheme that Tennessee runs. So I just have a lot more questions about him. And I would just feel uncomfortable with taking him at 18. And again, I think there's other players at bigger positions of need that are probably going to be available around that pick that I would definitely prefer over him.
And this was a surprising 82% no, 17% yes so far. Chops, you love Jared Goff. You say we don't need a quarterback, yet you've come on the show multiple times talking about other trains, talking about Hendon Hooker, trying to combine the two names. Like, I don't understand you, bro. Talk about this player. Would you take him at 18?
My love for Hendon Hooker is well documented, but it does not reach to the levels of the 18th pick. No, I love Hendon Hooker in the late 2nd, early 3rd, if he's there. But I agree with everything that Logan just said. The ACL, the age. With my 18th pick, I need somebody who's going to come in and play right away. My defense is the biggest point of need, and I do not have interest in having him at 18.
So the crazy part about this poll is, like, I want a Hendon Hooker if I could get him in round 2 as well, but it seems like you'd have to spend 18. So, like, when I was hovering over this question, I'm one of the 17% that said I think I'd be willing to do so if they pass early and if they love this player. I don't love it due to his age and what Logan mentioned, but I would consider it if they love Hendon Hooker and they want the quarterback and he's there at 18. So another intriguing one for everybody to think about. Logan, I got to come to you on this one. You got to help me out. Me and Chops talked about this a week or two ago, or maybe multiple weeks. Would you approve of the Lions taking Bijan Robinson, running back? I assume it's at 18. I've heard some kooks even say they'd be good with him at 6. Like, where are you at with this?
So early in the draft process, I was totally against drafting him at all, even at 18. And as I've gotten deeper into this class, overall, I just feel like this draft class is not that great compared to other years. I think there's a really big, like, second tier number of players, but Bijan Robinson is one of the top tier players in the entire draft. He's just at a position that's not very valuable. And the Lions they just signed Montgomery to a decent sized contract. They still have Swift for at least one more year, but in long-term future, you could still add a running back. And when you get to 18, I just feel like I can't say who's going to be there, but if Bijan Robinson's still there, relative to position, he's probably still the best. He's probably the best player on the board. It's just, do you feel like running back is valuable enough at that point? But I think what you're getting in Robinson, if you draft him, you're getting a great running back for at least 5 years. And who knows, the shelf life of running backs is typically short. But you're going to have, I think you can have an elite running back almost right away. There's a really small learning curve to running back. Running backs can come in and perform right away. And so that would probably give you the option to trade Swift and maybe recoup some of that draft capital you spent on Robinson at 18. So yes, I would be fine selecting him at pick 18. It's tough to say with who would be on the board at that time, but I think he would probably be the best player available at pick 18. It's just, unfortunately, it's at a position where you can typically find running backs a little later in the draft and get them at a cheaper cost.
Cobbs, can you set Logan straight on this, please, or I'll do it if you don't want to.
I love my boy Logan. It's going to be hard for me to disagree so adamantly with him, but no, I do not want Bijan Robinson, a third running back to the roster at pick 18. Absolutely not. The only scenario that I would be okay with that is if they announced that they had traded Swift for a third round pick and now we're taking Bijan with 18. That's the only possible way I'd be okay with that. And there's no way they're getting a third for him. So the answer is no. I do not need a 3-headed monster at running back. If you draft him, then Swift's value, like, teams know they're going to lowball you because you need to get rid of a back. What are you going to do? Have a 3-headed monster there? You're going to burn a year of his contract if he's not the full-time starter? On and on and on. No.
Well, hey, he's a special running back. He forces so many missed tackles, and that's my biggest stat I look at when I'm looking at running backs. I want guys who get yards after contact and make guys miss. And Bijan Robinson does that at just an insane rate. So I think he's truly special enough. It's just like drafting Kyle Pitts that the Falcons did a couple years ago. I think he's as much of a unicorn as he can be at the position. And, it might not be great value, but if you draft an all-pro, and he's only on your team for 5 years, I'll take it. So I'm not against it.
I love the player. I mean, we've said that before. I do love the player. I just don't like him at that spot for the Lions with where we are at and ready to win the division, ready to make a playoff run this year.
I think he would make their team better, though. That's what I thought about it, because Montgomery, I like him. I don't think he's a big home run threat, but Swift, if he can stay healthy, has that home run threat, but makes a lot of really frustrating plays as well and not getting all the yards I think he should. So I just think Robinson would make their team better instantly. And I don't know if you can say that about every other selection they might take at pick 18, because other players might not even hardly see the field. This team's getting better where not every single draft pick we are going to draft is going to play a ton like they have the last couple years.
Fellas, I got to step in. We could do this all day. I think Chops beat up Logan well. I think Logan tried his best to come back and defend himself, but it sounded more like the people that come to me, but okay, Bijan Robinson's a good football player. I know, but I can't take a third back. I can't take a guy just because he's good. I need to do other things with that asset. So we could go on and on. I respect both of you. Appreciate you. But that was fun. Let's keep this thing moving. This is a fun one. Let's go to Chops with this. Is Jalen Carter off your board due to character concerns?
Oh, Okri, absolutely not. No. Do I want a big, nasty attitude, mean streak, defensive interior, the best defensive interior prospect since Quinnen Williams on my roster? Oh, hell yeah.
They can't handle me. They ain't tough enough yet.
I didn't have the other drop you want ready, but I had that one. So, of course, you're going to go. I can't wait to hear Logan's answer because he always negates character, football mentality. He wants
That's a smart
athletes.
man.
He wants talent only. Logan, what do you got to say for yourself on this one?
All I can say is I don't know about the character concerns, so I just base it solely off talent. He's the best player by far, I feel like, in this draft at the Lions' biggest position of need. So to me, it's a home run pick if the Lions have, put him through the process and they think he's all good to go in terms of character and off the field concerns. But if the Lions were to get him, he's so fun to watch. He's so explosive from a three technique, always getting in the backfield. I just think he's exactly what the Lions need. And I do, even if he does have a few character flaws, I think the Lions have a culture that's good enough that they should be able to bring him along and kind of absorb and teach him how to be an NFL football player. So he's not off my board, but I can't say I know all the details. And if the Lions don't clear him, then I'm going to have to trust him on it. But it's just going to really hurt if for some reason he's there and the Lions pass on him and he becomes a perennial All-Pro.
So what you're telling me is you're kind of 50-50?
No, well, I can't talk about his character as much, but I know there's people out there that have already said we're passing on him. I don't want anything to do with him because of his character concerns, but I just feel like I don't have enough information to even know that anyway. So yeah, if you want to call that 50-50, I'm doing my usual thing. You know how it goes.
So the people, 20% say he's off their board. 80% say still on, but the question, let's go back to the question. Is he on the board? It sounds like for both of you, yes. For me, yes, he's still there. But the other question would be, would you take him? Because some people would no matter what. Logan's claiming he knows nothing about this football player. Well, I saw he got arrested. I saw that he wasn't in shape. I saw he couldn't even do jogging without tapping out. I've seen plenty of that stuff. I've heard it. I hear a lot of people saying he's off NFL boards, or they don't want anything to do with him, so I know that much. I think there's just a lot of questions. So this guy's losing all tiebreakers for me, basically. He's not off my board, and if he's the best player and there's no other tiebreakers, I will take him. But very concerned based on all my information that I do have, Logan, which is sketchy at best if you ask me. But talent is there. Athleticism is there. Check for you. Chops doesn't care. He just wants big-name, good football players and hopes it works out. I want winners. I want good guys that love the game and I don't have to worry about. And I got to worry about this guy from what I can tell. So we'll see what happens. Fellas, let's keep this rolling. We got a few more we want to do here, and then we'll get our great sponsors in and we come back. I mean, gosh, we got so much more to get into here on this great draft show. So appreciate Logan and Chops and everybody listening for diving into this. But Let's go back to Chops on this one. I'm curious what you'll say based on what we've talked about earlier. Would you approve of an old lineman at 6? Like the Skronk?
Oh, man. You know how I love to build my team through the trenches. You know how we've valued the O-line. We've been beefing it up. To me, I would not approve of an offensive lineman at 6 this year because I think the team needs a defensive lineman first. So I love the Skronk. Don't get me wrong, but no, I would not approve if we went a lineman at 6.
Logan, where you at with Skronk and O-lineman at 6?
Well, this isn't 50-50 at all. I would not approve of it. Just because it's one of those things where I don't think there's any. The Lions don't need a tackle, and even if there were a tackle, I think worthy at 6 because it is a premium position. I don't think the Lions would take a tackle, but I just don't think the value. I don't like any player at 6 that's on the offensive line. So that's either even with Skronk, if you're going to move him to guard, he's mostly a tackle, and so yeah, it's a little bit of a projection. I think he'll be a great guard, but it's still a projection, and I don't think that's a risk you take at pick 6.
So I'm in favor of this. I voted for yes. I also heard that Hal Vaitai is looking good and is healthy, which surprises me after a back surgery. We also have Graham Glasgow now, which has changed my opinion a little bit. But my yes is because you play him at right guard, you cut, you save a bunch of money, you kick him to the right tackle, you eventually phase out good old Taylor Decker, who's been a good soldier for us after a couple years. And then you got your 2 tackles moving forward. But I kind of agree with both you fellas, like based on what I'm hearing and how this is shaping out, that at 6 it'd be tough. But making the offensive line absolute dominant strength for years and years to come is still something that really intrigues me. 74% of the people don't agree with me, and they agree with you fellas. They don't want anything to do with an O-lineman at that selection. So I respect it. This is the one that really intrigues me when it comes to cornerbacks at 18. You got to pull up asking who would you prefer, Joey Porter Jr., Banks, the kid out of Maryland, Emmanuel Forbes, the guy that just turns the football over from Mississippi State, or another cornerback at that position. Logan, who you got?
So actually, Deontay Banks, I think I like more than Joey Porter Jr. Just athletic profile, and yeah, he has the length that you look for in a corner. But I just like Banks, and he's a 4-year starter, good size, 4.35 40, gets his hands on plenty of passes, just more sticky than I think Porter is, and with Porter, I feel like I'm splitting hairs a little bit, but he's just usually with guys that size, there's the flaw with those larger corners is typically just that they have trouble sometimes with smaller receivers because they can't stick up with them. So to me, I'm all about Banks, and Porter I wouldn't be upset about either. And I think a lot of draft analysts have Porter ahead of Banks, but I think I prefer Banks over Porter.
In this poll, I selected Banks. I'm not a Joey Porter Jr. guy. He's getting a lot of late love. Emmanuel Forbes I love almost, but it seems a little bit tough there at 18. Second round type player if I could get him there. Chops, what do you say?
Oh, I'm going to have to disagree with you, boys. Listen, give me some Joey Porter Jr. I know he's getting the hype because of his daddy, but I just love his physicality on the line. I think, I like his profile a little bit better than Banks. So at 18, Porter's my guy.
I thought you might say that. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a very intriguing pick based on position and player. And this is another guy I love that's at sort of that position. Love this player. Curious where he'll go. Would you approve, and by the way, Joey Porter Jr. is the resounding favorite in the poll for that last question, 60%, which I feel like...
Sorry. Had to get it in there.
Which I feel like wasn't that at all like a few days ago or a week ago, but that's the latest trend. Like I said, Logan and my guy was the guy before that, but the people are changing, which has been known to happen. But I love Brian Branch. He's what I talked about earlier. I got no concerns. He's a clean player. He's cerebral and smart. He can play all over the field. He comes from great school pedigree. This is just a slam dunk player that I could take at 18, have no worries, fit him in my defense for years to come and feel good about it. Logan's question was, would you approve of selecting of Brian Branch at pick 18? 68% yes. 31% no. I was surprised more people were on board with this. I thought it would be a interesting decision for most folks. Chops, what do you think about Brian Branch at 18?
Oh, baby. Can you imagine Brian Branch and CJ, that's my GJ, just running the backfield. Like, oh my gosh, yes. Give me some Brian Branch at 18.
And the same reason you love it is why I'm almost peeling back, because we have all these players. Like, I don't know how you could fit him in. It'd almost be like a guy you train up for a year and he has a bigger role in year two. Logan, what do you say?
Yeah, so I was all on board, like 100% taking him before the signing of Gardner Johnson, but you have to look at the long-term future. Gardner Johnson being on a 1-year deal, and obviously looking for more money, is it worth it to grab Branch and kind of groom him to be in that same role as CJ, GJ, and at least this year, at the very least, just be a nice depth piece and just be a jack of all trades, because that's what he is. He's just really good at everything. And you know me, I love my athletes, and he isn't an athlete, but he's just all over the football field. And I think safety's that one position where I'm fine usually giving a little less athletic guys with more instincts just the benefit of the doubt, because I think safety's such an instinctive position, and Brian Branch has that. So I'd be fine with it. I don't think it's necessarily a home run for this season just because of Gardner Johnson, but in the long-term future, it could be huge.
My favorite part of that take was, you know how I love athletes? Well, he's not athletic, but and Logan, what do you think about his football character? I'm sure you got that circled on your spreadsheet, right?
Yeah, I don't know. He's a good football player.
Incredible football character, and as you said, instincts. All right, fellas, we could do this all day. Let's hit one more, because I know this one is just straight up Chops' alley, so that's why I'm not going to him first. Logan, if you had to choose, which wide receiver are you selecting at 18? You got Quentin Johnston, you got Jordan Addison, you got Zay Flowers, or other, assuming that JSN is not available in this poll.
Yeah, I just kind of assumed Jackson Smith and Jigba was out, because I think he would be the clear favorite. And even though he's been more of a slot player, kind of like Amon-Ra has been, I still think he's the best receiver. So, yeah, and if I had to choose, I would not prefer a receiver at 18, just to make that clear. But I think the Lions could use a bigger-bodied X receiver on the outside. So that's Quentin Johnson in a class filled with just all these really small or really, light receivers. Quentin Johnson's one of the bigger receivers in the draft. It's just, unfortunately, he doesn't play to his size all that well. I think he could be a little bit better and play a little bit bigger, and he's a good athlete. So I would go with Quentin Johnston, but wouldn't necessarily love this selection.
Chops, I'm kicking it to you just so you can fawn over the same player.
Okrie, come on. You know how I feel, my boy Q. That's right. He is the best receiver in this draft, in my opinion, outside of JSN. So, yes, give me Quentin Johnston at 18. I'm not, again, I don't necessarily love taking a wide receiver at 18, like Logan said, but if you're making me do it, it's going to be Q, no questions asked. Because we need a big X wide receiver, and he's a big X wide receiver, and the guy plays physical. I like him, 6'4", 215. Yes.
So you don't like taking a receiver at 18 now that we got Logan on, who laid it out very, smartly. Yet every mock I see from you has Quentin Johnson to the Lions at 18. Why? Because you touting this big. Why do we need a big wide receiver? Is there something in the fine print that we need a big wide receiver, a slot wide receiver, a fast wide receiver? Is that somewhere in the NFL jargon that we have to have that, or is that something you made up?
Okrie, it's football. And my boy Jared Goff wants a big, nasty freak to throw the ball to. He's got J-Mo Fast on the left. He's got Amon-Ra on the slot. And give him Q up the middle, ready to make some contested catches. Come on. Full compliment, baby.
Who was the second guy you mentioned? I mean, I didn't catch his name.
Oh, well, I'll have to correct Mr. Logan Lerman here. It's Amon-Ra.
ARSB. Exactly. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, I used to say this about not being able to throw, but You both might want to look at Quentin Johnson because he can't catch. Okay, I got that in. I haven't used that in a while. Fellas, that's the Logan Lamorandier polls. I literally picked out 6 to 8 of them. There's probably, 15 or more up now. There'll be more up. I would like all of you to vote. One, because I want to hold you accountable forever on what you say or what these polls show, so that when the Lions do something incredible that's different than that, you can't say I told you so. But Logan, keep these coming, man.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I gotta get the second and just mid rounds general consensus on certain players, and obviously the scenarios you can't predict who's all going to be there in the middle rounds, but at least again try to get general thoughts on ideas.
I love how I demand that you do more polls when you have like no time. You're fortunate or you're nice enough to come on and talk ball here. We did a 30-minute segment there on a few poll questions, and we got so much more to talk about. And at Chops in the D is flying all over the country doing 8 million things, and he's like, Okrie, we got to talk Lions, we got to talk draft, let's get after it. Fellas, I thought that was fun. How about we get our great sponsors in, and then maybe we come back, you stat guys can battle it out. We might have to get some Logan Lamorandier guys, his favorite players, and just talk about what Brad Holmes is cooking for next week. Sound good?
I like it.
Everybody, please listen to our sponsors. We'll be right back.
All right, everybody. This goes out to my fantasy football fans out there. Now, you probably heard about Reality Sports Online, the most powerful fantasy sports platform where owners can build and manage their fantasy team like a real NFL general manager. But the question is, have you tried it? I mean, we're talking free agency, multi-year contracts, rookie drafts, multi-team trades. You could put franchise tags on guys. It's as close as you're going to get to being an NFL GM. But do you think it sounds complicated? It's not. I'm here to tell you it's the best thing about Reality Sports Online is it's just more fun than your normal fantasy league, but it doesn't take barely any more time. After all this, are you still not sure? I mean, come on now. You can test your general manager skills by going over to Reality Sports Online, call it RSO. Please go check out realitysportsonline.com right now.
Kool-Aid drinkers, please tell me that you listen to our sponsors. That really help out the show. Please tell me you're going to Reality Sports Online if you love fantasy football, or maybe checking out Spotify where this show is at, and it's pretty much on every podcast platform. For all the listeners, you know how we say how we shout you guys out every week.
And the people consist of the millions
of Kool-Aid drinkers, millions and millions, of course, that listen to this show and that rep the Detroit Lions. So appreciate you doing that. We had a fun first segment. We got into it. We let Chops and Logan Lamorandier from Sports Illustrated get after it and give their opinions. And I laid out for the most part, played some sound bits, and had fun listening to these guys. Also, go check out all Logan's stuff and everything they're doing over there at SI All Lions. Always great content, good coverage. Chops is always putting out great things on his Twitter as he has time, as we all have time, and that's at Chops in the D. You guys can find me at Derek Okrie. It's going to be a big time for Lions football, the draft, all types of things coming up. So definitely be up on the Twitter machine and get that rolling. But fellas, we got to get right into this second half. So as I said, I kind of laid out. I just gave a few hot takes, a few opinions. I'm going to even do that more because you guys are both known for coming on this show, and regardless of the hot take, the sound bit, the crazy opinion I might have, you both want to bring it back to the stats. You want to tell me factual information that I can find anywhere, to be honest, and prove your point based on numbers. So I thought I'd just let both of you kind of battle it out. I kind of told Logan to maybe pull a couple things so he could knock Chops over the head with a few stats. Chops went and hit the Google machine right before the show and pulled out some bula bula from somewhere. So I don't know. I'll go with Logan first. Logan, what kind of numbers, what things are impressing you and maybe boring me to death at this point when it comes to stats, analytics, factual numbers about the Lions?
Are we talking just straight line stats or draft stats?
I'm talking whatever you got in your back pocket, because I know you love the draft analytics as well. This guy jumped this far, he ran this fast. Can he play is what I want to know, and does he have good football character? But whatever you got, throw it at Chops, make him feel like a fool, and that'll be fun for me.
Well, I just went straight to the draft. So I know we actually didn't even cover it, but it was in my polls on which cornerback you would prefer at number 6. The Lions went that route, whether it be Christian Gonzalez or Devin Witherspoon. I went with Witherspoon just because he's a ball hawk, and that's what the Lions need. And I found out he had 18 forced incompletions in 2022, which was the most in the FBS, as well as a passer rating against a 25.3. So I just felt like if we're going to select a corner, I'd be fine selecting a corner. You know me, I say it all the time. I'm always about the big athletes, and Gonzalez is probably the best athlete at corner. But Witherspoon, when it comes down to ball hawking, I think that's what you have to have at 6. I would want Witherspoon because of how often he gets his hands on the ball.
So in a segment about stats, Logan went against athletic stats and went with instincts and the ability to play the position over the numbers, but also gave credit to Christian Gonzalez, who is a freak physically and with speed. But again, I'm with you. I like Witherspoon better. Choppy, you got anything over there that's going to beat that? I doubt it.
No, of course not. I want to add to the point. Since we're talking about Witherspoon, let's get into it. Do you realize that Witherspoon against wide receivers targeted 63 times, only gave up 22 catches and about 204 yards, 3 picks, 14 pass breakups? That is why my boy Witherspoon is higher on my board than Gonzo.
Agreed. No, he's a really fun player to watch, and he's not afraid to tackle either. And despite only being 181 pounds, he throws his weight around really well. So he would be a lot of fun to have in the Lions. And I just think at 6, yes, the Lions don't necessarily have to have a corner. It's not the biggest need, but I think long term it definitely is. And if Jalen Carter's off the board and Wilson and Anderson are already selected with the top 3 quarterbacks, I think the Lions, their best route would be to take a corner.
I hate to interrupt this Stat Geek segment, but Logan, are you saying you'd take him at 6 and feel good about it?
I would feel, like I said, if the draft played out with the top 3 quarterbacks, Wilson and Anderson, all gone, Jalen Carter was off the Lions board, I think the best player that's remaining is Witherspoon. I just don't, there's not any other player that I think I would feel more comfortable with than Witherspoon. I just feel like Witherspoon has a very high floor and has a pretty high ceiling. He's a really good athlete, but maybe not that elite athlete, doesn't have the elite size. But yeah, I'd be good with a cornerback at 6.
Interesting. 190, throws his body around, worries me. I know those aren't detailed analytics, but they are numbers that go against him. I love his character, though, and the way he plays the game. So interesting stuff on both those, or on that same player from both you guys. Choppy,
who would you take in that situation? Because I think that's kind of like the Lions' nightmare scenario if they really like Wilson or Anderson and Carter's off their board and the top 3 quarterbacks are gone. Like who's really left there to take for the Lions?
Gosh, the way I'd set it up is, Skronk or Nolan Smith would be my next guys, that I would want. And I'm probably going with my boy Nolan Smith now that I talked myself out of Skronk based on Hal Vaitai running around like he's 20 years old again. But again, I don't want to get in the middle of this segment. I want to have you guys throw a few more numbers out for the people. Choppy, what else you got in your back pocket? You got anything else that you pulled out of thin air, probably about Jared Goff?
Well, geez. I mean, Oakrey, come on. Of course, I can't have a stat battle and not mention something about quarterbacks, right? And it'll probably be something about how I think there's only been one time in the history of the draft, which is 2021, that 3 quarterbacks went 1, 2, 3. And I know that's the big hot topic right now is 3 out of the top 4 being quarterbacks. I, based on the numbers and based on the talent, do not see that happening. I do not think that these quarterbacks are going to come off the board quite like everybody expects. So I don't necessarily have a stat for you, but I will tell you that do not be shocked when this draft goes down and only 2 quarterbacks are off the board when the Lions pick at 6.
So that'd be pretty crazy. So there's going to be a good quarterbacks there sitting at 6, and you wouldn't draft them because we have Goff?
That's exactly right,
Get
Mr.
him.
Logan. I believe that Anthony Richardson or someone, maybe Strout, actually, based on some of the people that I've been talking to, may be there at 6, and I will not take them. Oakrey will, but I will not. And neither will Brad Holmes.
Cops should have just said, hey, instead of me responding to Logan, just play the sound.
I don't want your boola boola support when it comes to Jared Goff. You don't get to join the Goff train. You're off, bro. You're off.
Anybody that doesn't love Jared Goff, they're off, bro. They're off. I'm with you, Logan. Anthony Richardson's a freak. I don't even care about any of these old numbers, old quarterbacks and everything. That doesn't mean anything right now. Like, if Anthony Richardson is there at 6 and you don't make that pick, that's malfeasance in my opinion. That's a stat for you.
Yeah, it'd be tough to pass on Anthony Richardson just because of his upside. And having that cheap rookie contract sounds real nice right now.
Logan's dream.
Bring a lot more free agents in with that little contract that Anthony Richardson's getting on the rookie scale.
Logan, you got another number in your back pocket that you want to throw out. I'm going to have to end this segment here shortly before you put everybody to sleep. But, you probably got some other thing about it's been, up in your head about the draft or the Lions or something.
Not really. I mean, if we're going straight Lions, I don't really have any Lion stats off the top of my head. I could look them up. I have them all. I just didn't. I guess I'm not prepared for that. But
yeah, no, it's no problem. Chops might have another one. So if you guys don't, we'll end the segment. I mean, I thought it was a good battle. You guys always are justifying your arguments with numbers, which, like I said, I can both appreciate and not respect at all at the same time. Chops, you got anything else, or you want to get to some of Logan's favorite players here?
I mean, Oakrey, the beauty of stats is that you have them in your back pocket to use when you need to defend your position. So just asking for blanket stats is, puts me in a very difficult spot because the stats that I have all fit a narrative that I am going to lay out on you later at some point in time. So I don't want to just give you my stats. That's my golden ticket, baby. It's in the back pocket. So wait for me to have a take and for you to disagree with it, and then I'm going to slap you upside the head with the stats.
Kind of like you did before the show when you mentioned every reason we shouldn't take quarterback. You ignored every reason we should. You're kind of that guy at the meeting that gives all the reasons why because he wants something approved, and then the boss is like, I don't care what you said. We're not doing that, right?
No, actually, what I am is I'm the boss who makes that decision. But anyway, let's get to Logan and some of his guys in the draft because this is what the people want.
Yes, exactly. So Logan, you've come on like we've talked all about, but we haven't really got to some of your guys. Like you said, you've sort of been playing catch up with all the busyness of life, but we are basically a week away from the draft. So, I mean, you probably drilled down on some of these guys. Let's focus on kind of those first 3 to 4 selections. Guys that you're going to feel the most happy with, what's your best case scenario for the Lions, you're hoping they do, guys that are like your guys that you're pegging both for the Lions or just in general that these guys are studs and they should take him. Like, go ahead and tackle that however you want.
All right, yeah. So at the top of the draft, I think you'll probably guess Jalen Carter is my top player. I think it would just be a steal to get him at 6 if he's there because he is the best football player in the draft. And so I'm not going to go too much further on him. I think everyone knows kind of the deal with him. I already hit on Witherspoon at corner. I really like him. And Anthony Richardson, if he's still there at 6. Those are kind of my 3 guys at 6 I would really like. And there's other guys. I'd be fine with Christian Gonzalez. But after that, Tyree Wilson, I don't know how I feel about him. There's just reports that some teams like him more than Anderson, and maybe it's just because of his size. But he was very productive this last season. But I just think at 6, I would like to see a little bit more. I would love to see what his measurables are. And he looks like he's fairly explosive off the snap, but considering he's 270 pounds, and super long arms, his wingspan is just huge. He has everything you look for, but I just wonder about the bend with him. So that's kind of where I'm at 6, and those are my guys. And my one concern is Tyree Wilson at 6. Not that I wouldn't dislike the pick, but I wouldn't feel warm and fuzzy about it.
Hey, Chops,
Logan, let me ask you a question here, Logan.
Okay.
So the way I see Wilson, and he's getting some late hype, right? Kind of like what happened last year. When it was Thibodeau and it was Hutch, and then Tavion Walker snuck up there. Like, are you feeling like this is kind of like the same trend? We're 10 days out, and now like Tyree Wilson is the hot name that people are kind of putting up there?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I just don't know if Wilson's the same type of athlete. He's just a really big, good athlete, and that can win against offensive tackles. And he had a really good pass rush win rate. It was a 22.3% pass rush win rate that he had last year, which is, again, towards the top. It's towards the top in the class. So it's impressive. But I don't know how comparable it is to last year. I don't think he's going to be. I still think Will Anderson will go ahead of Wilson. There's just, you never know what to believe right now in smokescreen season this close to the draft.
Yeah, I agree. Not comparing the players stat wise or measurable wise, but I would be on cloud 9 if somebody reached for Tyree and somehow Will Anderson fell to us at 6. I'd be ecstatic.
Yeah, that'd be huge if Will Anderson is there. Will Anderson's my second prospect behind Jalen Carter. And the reason I didn't include him at 6 is I don't think he should be there. But, we said the same thing about Penei Sewell for a long time, but didn't really think Hutch was going to be there at the second pick because a lot of people assumed he'd be the first overall pick. And the Lions both years have come out with players who I think should have been drafted before the Lions picked them. So you never know.
Logan, you hit right where I was coming to you for a question because you didn't really mention Will, and like, I hear him getting beat up recently. Oh, he's not that good. I don't know if it's just like, I'm praying and hoping if he was there at 6, I wouldn't even mind if they jumped up to 3 and to get that type of player. So I'm glad you hit on him. And Chops, back to you. I was going to say, Tyree, my boy, is all about potential instead of what he's done or what he did 2 years ago. It's about what he's going to do. And I like that he's getting a ton of love because the NFL is all about the potential, the wingspan, the what ifs, the we'll make him into this and that once we coach him up. So I think that's what you're seeing there across the board. And, the other point I want to hit on with Logan is like, multiple things that we don't expect are going to happen with these first few picks for the Lions. There's going to be guys there you never expected to be there. People are going to be gone that we've been assuming for months we're going to be on the board. Like, it's going to get crazy come Thursday and Friday for sure when it all really goes down. So I can't wait to see what happens. But I'm not writing Will Anderson out of the equation by any means on my side.
No, not at all. If he's there at 6, it would definitely be a no-brainer. I really find it hard to believe that he would be there, but again, you never know.
Logan, how about some guys at 18, looking at that, 48, 55-ish range, like what are guys that you've circled based on how fast they run, how high they jump, how good they look on film, quote unquote, and where do they sit on the Logan Lamb-Randier board? And then a quick follow-up, if I may, do they love football?
I don't know. So at 18, I already mentioned Deonta Banks. I really like him. Brian Branch, we mentioned, he's another one of my guys. I think is just a really good football player, and you know exactly what you're getting with him at 18. I think that's a lower risk move. But kind of, I think people have forgot about. I still like Myles Murphy. He was someone who was mocked pretty consistently in the top 10 of the draft, and then he kind of fell down draft boards. But at his pro day, I mean, he just killed it, and you knew he would. Had a 1.59 10-yard split, which is, I always look for under 1.6. I mean, that's just an elite burst, and he's at 268 pounds. I would have liked a little better 3-cone time from it at 7.21. I prefer to be closer to 7 seconds, but he's still got plenty of athleticism. He lives in the backfield. I think he's a really forgotten about player for whatever reason. It just hasn't had all this hype at the beginning of this process and kind of has fallen down the board. So I would actually still be fine with him at 18. Another guy is Darnell Wright. Again, more so for a guard. He's a right tackle. Wasn't that good at left tackle, but at right tackle, really found what he was. Highly regarded prospect. Really found his form at right tackle, and he shut down some really good players. Will Anderson was being one of them. He has some really impressive tape, and I think a long-term future. Start him at right guard. We mentioned it about Taylor Decker, maybe moving on. You could move Sewell to the left and Darnell Wright, kick him out to the right side if need be. So he's another guy that I'm probably higher on the most. And then lastly, much like Miles Murphy, for kind of a forgotten player, someone who was typically in the top 10 draft mocks at the beginning of this, probably in January, Brian Brzee. Again, big athletic guy, and he had some family issues and just a lot of things off the field that really probably made it a tough 22 season, but he has everything you look for in a gap shooting 3-tech defensive tackle, which is what the Lions need. I know there's a lot of Elijah Cansey love out there. I think I would prefer Brzee over Cansey.
Perhaps what kind of follow-ups you got?
Yeah, actually, Logan, you brought up the two names that I was really curious about your take on, because I think we can all agree, at least this group agrees, that defensive interior is a huge need for the Lions. And if Carter's off their board and you go a different way at 6, I think that 18 slot is where you're looking at, okay, is it a Cansey? Is it I always say Breezy, but it's Breeze. Somewhere in there, how do you feel this defensive interior line kind of stacks up? Sounds like you've got Brian over Cansey.
I do. And then I have Adibare pretty close as well. Even though he's kind of pretty similar to Pascal, but he's just a lot more athletic, which I like. But yeah, Cansey to me, I think everyone just wants to compare him to Aaron Donald because he went to the same school. He's undersized, but Aaron Donald's tape is still a lot better than Cansey's tape in my mind at the college level. Elijah Cansey's arm length is another big concern. They're really short arms. It's just over 30 inches, which in a league that you need those long arms to get into guys' chests and to be able to manipulate players. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. So Brzee to me, it just had a down 2022 season, and he's got all the talent there. And there's not really that many players. The defensive tackle class is pretty light in terms of talent. I think once you get past Brzee, there's a few diamonds in the rough that I might go over here in a few, but for the most part, it's a pretty weak defensive tackle class. And if the Lions need a defensive tackle, you're probably going to have to take one pretty early.
Yep, totally agree. I actually I really like your take on Cansey too. I know he's getting all the Aaron Donald comparison love, but I mean, yes, the school, but I don't see the other comparisons that people are making with him.
Yeah, Aaron Donald was just on another level. Yeah. His college tape, it was just ridiculous. And and even Josh Pascal, his tape against the run is pretty solid as well. So he's just the same size as Elijah Cansey is. So I don't know why if they wanted to play him more inside a little bit, I would like to do that and see what you got there over drafting Elijah Cansey.
As I always do, I've got many retorts, many things I would like to say, but time is precious. I'll just say them quickly. Chops, just to translate for you, Adibare, that's that kid from Northwestern, just so you know. The other thing that I wanted to say is you just hit on Cansey. To me, I already know some of the shortcomings he has, but everyone says we need a penetrating, get after the quarterback defensive tackle. This guy's the best one of those, especially if you have concerns about Jalen Carter. So every time I do a mock, he's the best player available at 18. He fits what they need. You could even use him as a specialist, and he'd be good. And the third thing I want to say is rumor innuendo that I've heard is the Lions love Josh Pascal. They think this guy's going to be an absolute freak, stud, incredible football player. So I agree with Logan that move him around, but you're going to see a lot of Josh Pascal, number 93 for the Lions, doing some big things. So, Logan, I want to kick this to you and Chops.
With Kalijah Kancey, too, I want to bring this up. With Kalijah Kancey as well, the Lions have all these bigger defensive ends, and they move them inside a lot. So if Kalijah Kancey's just going to be a situational pass rusher, the Lions kind of already have that with their bigger defensive end. So how many of these type of players can you really have? I would prefer to have a 3-tech that can actually play all 3 downs and is solid against all 3 downs. Whereas I feel like Kancey just really projects more as a pass rushing specialist at this point. And yeah, he makes some good plays against the run too, but he doesn't necessarily have the size where I don't know if you're going to want him on first downs on the goal line. Really getting in there. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me with my bias against smaller players, and I always want the biggest and the most athletic.
Yeah, he's not a 3-down guy. He's not a goal line guy, but he's a guy that gives you something not only you don't have, but you say some of the shortcomings in his tape. How about the pass rush when he just flies by people and kills quarterbacks? I mean, that's pretty fun to watch and worth something in today's game. So anyway, we could get into it. I wanted to kick it back to you fellas about kind of positions. You know, like we obviously can't pick, hey, I would like this player at 6, this at 18, and these in the second round. But what's your perfect mix of like the Lions come out of day 1 and day 2 with this? Logan, let's hear your thoughts, and then Chops can kind of give his thoughts on what you say.
So day 1, I still think a defensive tackle, a cornerback, whether it be 6 or 18 or flip-flopped, I still think that would be a really nice combo because it's the biggest, I think, positions of need marry up with the best talent available that you project to be on the board. So that's where I'm kind of at with that. And then on day 2, I'm already at the point where it's strictly almost best player available. The Lions don't have all these glaring holes. If there's someone who slips at any position, you can go ahead and take them, because if you look down the line 2-3 years, the Lions roster, there's not that many guys under contract. Even though they're set this year, you have to build through the draft, and that you have to think a little bit long term. And the Lions are to that point now where they have to start doing that. Because they don't have all that many holes. So I would like a linebacker, and who knows what the Lions staff thinks about the importance of the position. And same with tight end. I think it's of the few positions that's actually a strong group, the tight end group is one of them. So I wouldn't be opposed to even the Lions getting a tight end in the second round. I would actually kind of like it because the group they have right now, they performed when they were given the chance. They caught a lot of touchdowns, but I think that's very situational. I would still like a player who's maybe a little bit more of a threat in the passing game and can also block. And there's not really many of those tight ends. So, tight end, linebacker, and I think offensive guard, Steve Avila, Cyrus Torres, if either of those guys are there in the second round, I think that would just be a steal for them.
Ops, what are you thinking?
I'm trying to think of what to say that didn't sound exactly what Logan just said, because I've been banging this drum of defensive line and secondary with 6 and 18 for a while now. Like those are our 2 biggest points of needs. Yes, I understand we made some great moves in the secondary, but don't forget that Cam Sutton is the only corner we have under contract after 2023. So I'm still addressing it. Again, whether it's Branch, whether it's Witherspoon, and then you get into your D lineman. I want those 2 first picks on my defense. As you all know, I love our offense. I'm not saying we don't need to address it at some point, but Brad Holmes has a knack for finding wide receivers, those gems later on. We've named some of those in previous shows, but yeah, I'm all defense at 16 and 18. And then, going into the second round, I'm loving, I've taken some guards in there. I'm looking at offensive line, and I'm also looking at linebacker because and this again, Logan, I love your take on Trenton Simpson because the guy is slipping, man. He was, I saw him. He at one point he was like a top 24 pick, and now he's like the 4th linebacker listed in a lot of these drafts. Like he's just so versatile, man. If I can get him with that last pick in the 2nd round at 55, how do you pass up on that?
Yeah, no, in my first mock draft I remember I had him in the 2nd round and I was like, there's no way he goes to the 2nd round, but he's not your true off-ball linebacker. He's almost like a slot or a nickel linebacker because he's so athletic and what he does, he's so unique. And I think if you draft him, you're definitely going to have to use him in a way that accentuates his strengths. But there's not many guys like that can do what he can do. So I think it would be a lot of fun. And definitely certain situations to have him on the field because he can do it all. But it's looking from an athletic standpoint, yeah, there's a lot to like there. And he just does things that other linebackers can't. But that's kind of how the NFL is trending. A lot of smaller linebackers, a lot of faster linebackers. And even though I'm saying that, I really like Jack Campbell in the 2nd round for the Lions too, as a future Anzalone replacement and a guy to kind of take the reins. And in Anzalone's 3rd year, when he's making a ton of money off that new contract, you already have a guy waiting in the wings and should be well-versed on the defense and can be the leader of that team and just a really good football player and a lot more athletic than he's given credit for.
Yep, I agree.
So I don't want to dip in and rehash all good stuff by you guys. I got into it a little bit with Kent Lee Platt, that's at MathBomb on the old Twitter machine, where he was kind of saying people are overvaluing defense and they just want these needs and they're not open to offense and all this other stuff. So we went back and forth. Good conversation. He's a good dude. He puts out all the RAS scores and whatnot. But, one thing that I just want to throw out there is kind of one of my philosophies with what do we do and these big picks and in general is I love big-bodied football players that can move. So if you get me like a 290 to 310-pound player that can move his feet, whether it's on the offensive line, defensive line, pass rusher that's 275 and can move, like that's very valuable to me. So that's why I was kind of telling him, like, I'd like to take big-bodied defensive or O-line type players early and then get my fringe guys later. I'm talking about the backers. I'm talking about wide receiver, tight ends. I feel I can get that early. So my general approach is like load up on big-bodied guys that can move bodies early, let the draft board fall. And to me, every mock I do, it's like defense heavy, and then in the end, I'm getting steals on offense. So I feel like that could be an approach that might work. And like I said, I know people are leaning heavy on defense, but it feels like that's what we should do, especially when late quarterbacks, late wide receivers, late tight ends, late, other positions of need, you could get down the road and it's not going to kill your offense, which is already good. So that's just something I'd continue to throw out there for people. Like, I can't imagine it's happening in all these mocks and then come draft day, all this offense goes early and then there's none later. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's always certain positions where I feel like, and running back's one of them, you can find just certain positions later in the draft a lot easier than others. And like edge defenders, I think you typically have to take early because a lot of the best edge defenders are all the elite athletes. And typically elite athletes at the edge position go very high. So you have to kind of load up there. And defensive tackle, just the way that it's shaken out in this draft, I feel like it's really tough to find a really good 3-tech later in the draft. And linebackers, as we saw last year, I think you can find good linebackers all throughout the draft. But Jack Campbell to me is just he's pretty unique with how big he is and how he can move and just reliable tackler, always where he needs to be. So yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say on your debate with Kent and where I fall with that. I guess I never really thought about it too much.
Like, you can see the reason to take a tight end premium. You could take this or that, but I see the Lions kind of dipping in areas that we don't expect, but I'd be shocked if they went like 2 or 3 offensive players early. But I mean, we'll see what happens. Fellas, like, gosh, we could just do this all day, and I'd actually like to, but we probably got to wrap this thing here at some point. So, Chops, you got any big picture thoughts about the draft, which is a week away? How Brad Holmes is gonna be cooking up something for Lions fans? I mean, Brad Holmes cooking, or what's that name you gave him a long time ago that made no sense, and then now it's funny?
Oh, come on. Now you came up with Holmes cooking, and so now you're dogging always open for business. Holmes sitting at the table, slapping the meat hooks together, getting ready to rake some other GM who's willing to give some picks. Yeah, listen, the draft is less than 10 days away, and I am so freaking excited, man. Like, it's so great to talk draft with Logan. Oh, yes. I could sit here and go back and forth with Logan like all night. Brother. And the people would probably listen, to be honest, because this guy is top notch when it comes to the Draft Insider. So the last thing I got to say is, woo! Hashtag choppy likey. Thanks, Logan.
I smell what you're cooking, brother.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's great finally being on the show with you and get to talk some football. We'll have to do this again soon, and especially after the draft too. There's so much to talk about. I feel like we could have gone down every player and talk about them, and it would be a 7-hour show, and I wouldn't mind doing it.
Logan, I'm sorry. I stepped on you with the drop because I smelled what Chops was cooking.
If you smell what The Rock is cooking.
Kind of like what Holmes is cooking. And what's your confidence level? I mean, are you just walking into this draft, like you said, like, look at our roster. We got a great roster, tons of picks, a great GM, an alpha head coach, ball players. I mean, you got to be feeling good heading into all this.
Real good. Yeah, there's even the picks that I haven't really liked of Holmes. I didn't like the Levi Onwuzurike pick, and so far that hasn't really turned out too well. But James Houston, I wasn't a big fan of that one, and that's turned out pretty great so far. So I'm at the point with him where I have no complaints. Every single person, every single GM, scout is going to have the guys they like or dislike a little bit more than others. But everything he's done in the 2 years, I have no concerns. If he takes a player I'm not super high on, I'm going to trust that he knows what he's doing a lot more than I do, and as with most GMs. But I have every bit of confidence in Holmes. I'm really happy that he's our GM.
It's going to be incredible to watch. As they both said, this has been I knew it was going to be a great show, but I mean, we did all this probably over an hour of content for you guys. We could do 3 hours. We had a couple bullet points. We talked ball. We got you guys hype. We know everybody's fired up for these Detroit Lions and the NFL draft. We're talking about it today, next week, the week after, following that, and we'll do it all right here on the Detroit Koolaid Cast. Take care, everybody. We're out.
Pack the bags, start the plane. This game is over. It is over. What a comeback by the Lions.
Drink it in, man.